Hello. So today I'm making another card using the Couture Creations Steampunk Dreams papers. So I've had a great time working with this collection and I'm pretty much down to using up the last scraps of the papers. It's been great. It's all been very usable. There's not much waste. So I had enough. I've created the matte layer for this card, and actually I gutted that to make sure I can keep that piece. I've using some antique gold mirror card. I've cut out some tags from some of these papers, and they're double-sided papers. They're lovely. It's hard to choose which side to use. But on this card I'm going to use this lovely piece, and that almost looks like antique leather. So I'm going to use that on there, and then I will have some tags arranged on there. This key comes with the tag die set. It's a 3-part set. I'll show you in a moment. And the butterfly on here. So this is another one of the papers. Have I got a piece of it here? Have I got a scrap of it here? Am I nearly out of it? No, I don't think I've got any. Oh, there we are. So yeah, this piece. So what I've done here is I've cut my tag, and then there was another butterfly in the piece alongside, and I've just fussy cut out that butterfly and glued it onto my tag just to give me some dimension and movement there. So as I say, down to the scraps. Oh, one of my scraps I've taped down on here, because what I thought would be nice on this, as I say, it looks a bit like antique leather, is to add some foil detail along here. But I'm not going to foil it directly onto that piece of paper. I could, but I haven't got another piece if it goes wrong. So I've got a scrap here, and I've taped it down onto a larger piece of card, because that will make it easier to keep it straight on my Go Press and foil. I've got a piece of card that I've actually got some layout lines marked up on from another project that I did, again with the Gentleman's Emporium collection. I was doing repeat stamping. So anyway, I kept this piece of card, and it's got a nice straight line along here. And I've used that to make sure I've taped that down straight. I've kept my tape well away from where I'm going to be foiling. And I'm going to be using this hot foil stamp, and this is part of a set of 3 strip hot foil stamps that come as part of the Gentleman's Emporium collection. So really useful hot foil stamps. Lots of places you can use those, and they're great if you use them on ribbon as well. So my Go Press and foil has been getting hot. So let me just tidy my bits here out of the way. It's my card. Now the other thing is, I've stuck down my gold card on my base layer, but I haven't stuck this down on, because when I done my strip that's going to be on here, I'm going to cut it to size before I stick this down. So I shall stick it on, make sure it's straight, trim the ends, and then stick this down. That'll be the easiest way of making sure it all lines up correctly. So put those to one side, grab my Go Press and foil. Obviously this is a completely optional detail in this project. You might want to stamp some decoration and heat emboss it, or just add a decorative strip. Right, so I've got that. Now I want 2 stamp press magnets, and I've got them, they're wrapped up in some nice wide masking tape so that I can grab hold of them easily. So I'm going to put this on here and line it up as straight as I can, but I am going to trim this afterwards, so if it's not exactly straight, it won't be a disaster. So I'm going to put it face down. I'm going to put 1 magnet on the back there and 1 on there, okay, and then that stays in place when I turn it upside down to put it on the Go Press. Okay, so let's do that. Well, let me do it that way around. Yes, that way around. I'm going to line this piece of card that I've got everything mounted on in a corner, And then I'm going to slide the magnets away, holding my hot foil stamp down through my card. And then I can take my card away and warm up my hot foil stamp. So that goes back on the base to warm up. Okay, and then I'm going to need some foil, so just bear with me a moment. Okay, I've got some antique gold foil. Actually, antique gold, right, to me it's an antique gold. It says gold foil, vintage matte finish is its official title. So I'm going to cut the length of this. It doesn't need to be quite as long as this piece of card. Let's go there. That probably seems like an awfully big piece of foil to cut, but I don't want to fiddle about with laying several bits down and having them overlap. And I'm also going to do a choice of sentiments for this card because I can't make up my mind which to use. So I shall cut a strip off of here, and then the rest I will use to foil some sentiments. So let's cut a strip, and I find the best thing for cutting foil is a pair of large scissors, nice sharp ones. There, that's my piece of foil for that. I'm going to cut a smaller piece of foil because I'm going to do a test just to check how many shims I need. And I've got some tiny scraps, tiny scraps of card to use for that. I've got 2 shims, I've got 3 shims there. Right, so that foil's a bit long still. So you don't have to foil your whole hot foil stamp to test if you've got your pressure correct. So I'm going to put that onto my Go Press and Foil. And let me turn my camera so you can see what I'm doing. I'll zoom in a bit as well. There we are. So hopefully you'll be able to see what I'm doing. So I'm just going to lift the lid. I'm not going to disturb it. Now it's very important I do not move my hot foil stamp. And I'm going to pop that down carefully. So it's not going to cover the whole thing. And put my piece of pattern paper. This is one of the little bits from the top edge. And then I want some shims. Let's see, that's a double. Oh, one more. So I've got 3 layers of shims there. Let's put those on. Now the hot foil stamp is nice and warm. I should be able to roll that immediately. Oops, take the camera back. So my lights just started flashing red, so we'll just wait for that to come back to green. And then I can test that and see if that's the right number of shims or too many shims. There. So it's gone to green. Okay, so there's my test piece. Let's bring the camera back round. Zoom in a bit. There we are. So here's my test piece. Oh, sorry, slightly drunk camera there. There we are. Not peeled the foil off yet. Let's take the foil off and have a look. Okay, and I can see I've got overfoiling on there. It would probably clean up quite easily, but I think 3 layers of card is too many. Okay, I think I'm going to take it to 2, and that will be about right. Now, obviously, I've had lots and lots of practice with my Go Press and Foil, So I'm not going to test that again. I'm just going to go for it. But if you're less experienced and not so sure, do another test. Okay. So let me get this ready to go. Now the thing I've got to remember is because I have stuck my pattern paper to a piece of card, that is one of my shims. Okay, so what I used was 3 and I only want 2, so actually I only want 1 piece of card plus that piece that I've stuck my paper to. Okay, so that will be what I use. So this is nice and hot, so what I do now is I add my foil, and then making sure I get this the same way round as it was when I lined it up, which was that way round. Put that down in the corner exactly the same as it was when I put my hot foil stamp in place. And then I'm going to take a piece of low tack tape and stick that down there so it can't move. I'm also going to add a piece further up. Okay, so this can't skew as I'm rolling it. Okay, that goes there. I want 1 more shim, and I want to make sure it is hot enough, so I'm just going to put it back on the base for a moment. Yeah, it's flashing red. Okay, so let's turn the camera, and then I can roll that through as soon as it goes green. It always seems to take ages when I'm waiting. There we are, it's gone green. So I can slide that off. Okay, so let's see how we got on. So there's my shim. This is my piece of card with my pattern paper attached, and it looks like I got it in the right place. Let me put that to one side. Okay, let's peel this foil. There. Okay, I'm just going to give that a brush with a soft brush. Now that's just knocked away a couple of bits of foil that weren't quite as I wanted them. So there we are. So that's our strip. Now we need to get it to the right size. So let me untape it. Okay, so I only want the green bit and I want it cut quite close to where my foiling is. So I'm going to use my Couture Creations mini guillotine. I don't need that piece of card stuck on there. Okay, so now I want to trim this. Now it's quite fiddly to get things under here and keep them straight because the guard gets in the way. So what I've found is if I use a piece of card that's bigger, I can put that in and then I can put one up against the other, and that helps me to make sure I'm keeping my card straight. Okay, so I'm kind of using that as a piece to come up against. So if I go now, I can just see the little spots in just to the left of the ridge on the guard here. So I'm going to cut there. I think okay, and I can push that out and turn it round and line up those little gold spots again and hold it down and trim. And there we are. So if I decide that I've got it bigger gap one side and the other, I can put it back in and I can trim again. I think I have got one edge just a little more waste than the other, so let me just trim that off. And again, I'm just going to use this piece of card. It's got a nice square end. It's a decent sized piece of card. It's not a little strip. Let's go to there. Make sure I'm straight. Just a little bit. Just take that little bit. That's better. Okay, I've got a nice even spacing. So that now can go onto my card. So I've got my layers there, and I've got my pattern paper that's going to go there. So before I stick that down, I want to decide where this is going, because I thought I'd kind of put that there. Okay, so I'm going to put double-sided tape on the back of here. Scissors. So I haven't cut this to length yet. That's coming in a minute. Okay, and then I'm going to release this at one end. Just roughly centre this on my card, and I want to make sure it's in line with the edge before I stick it down. So that's why I've only released the end of the tape. And I think that's straight. So I can stick that end down, but this could still twist. So I'm just going to take my tape off a little bit at a time and make sure this stays straight as it comes along. There. Stuck to my mat. Okay, and then I'm going to turn it over and trim the back with some scissors. Oh, they're a bit too big. Right. So not my small scissors, my medium-sized scissors I prefer for this. There we are. And that way my edge ends up perfectly flush to my paper. And now I can stick this down. At this stage, make sure you've got your card the right way up. Okay, so now I can add my tags. Wherever I want to arrange them. And then I just need to add a sentiment. So I'm going to come back in a few minutes and have a look at the options for a sentiment. Welcome back. So I actually decided to go ahead and finish off this card. I decided to go with the thinking of you sentiment, but I made a few before I actually decided what I wanted. There's also this die cut key comes as part of the die set with the tags, so I've added that as well onto the card. So sentiments, I wasn't sure to go with lots of love or happy birthday. Now this, when you actually create it, it comes as one piece. Let me just get the camera to focus on that. But it's quite easy to snip it into two if you want to use it like that instead. Okay, so it's a cut foil and embossed die, so there's that one, so it's in one long piece. And in the end I decided to go with thinking of you. That does lots of occasions and circumstances. So as you can see, it's a cut foil and embossed die. It's got a cutting edge around the outside and then raised kind of flat areas that actually press the foil onto the card. Okay, so you can use these with the Couture Creations conversion plate and just put the plate on. That's a big thick plate, very sturdy. I prefer to use two thin metal shims, and I've recently been trying out a new way of doing that. So, I forgot to say, the tags, you can see, let me just put the camera up a little bit, that's it. The tags are raised off the surface of the card, and so is my sentiment, you can see. And for that I've used, for the sentiment, I've used these black thin strip foam, I suppose they're foam pads, but they're foam strips, and they're just on the, I'll try and get them out, back in here, and you can peel off a bit that you want or cut some lengths by going across, and I find they're really good for detail work, particularly where you don't want your foam pads to be visible. And it's great just being able to cut the length that you want. Okay, so that's what I've used for that. And for the actual tags, I've been using these foam dots. They're nice thick foam pads, these, but I actually chopped up some bits of the waste just to put under the ends of the tags, so you don't have to waste anything. So that's foam pads. Now let's talk about, so the Couture Creations conversion plate, got mine here, is this substantial metal plate. Let's get the camera to zoom in on it if I can. So obviously I'm magnifying here. I'll get it to, there we are. So you can see that's got that's a really thick metal plate. Okay, and it actually says on it, if I turn it the right way up, there's on it here, what does it say? It says metal conversion plate. just there. Okay, so if you're not sure what you've got, look to see whether it says conversion plate on it. But what I'm not using that today. I'm using, excuse my arm, 2 thin metal shims. Let's bring this into the camera, get it to focus. There we are, and you can see that's much thinner. It's only half a millimetre thick, so 0.5 millimetres. It's quite flexible. Let me bring the camera back out. Wrong way. There we are. Focus, so you can see it's quite flexible. It's the sort of thing you use in your die cutting machine if you've got a particularly intricate die, or you're cutting fabric, that kind of thing. So it's a thin metal shim. Now I've got 2 of those, and one of them is already on my GoPress getting warm. Okay, so I'll show you that in a minute when I'm ready to load up the GoPress. So I've got some of my paper now. I'm literally down to scraps of paper now with this. So I'm going to use that piece. I've got my cut foil and embossed die. Just angle the camera down a bit. There we are. And I've got some foil. Let's make sure I don't cut it too short. Okay, so what I want to do is put my, just going to trim that top piece off so I don't accidentally foil onto that. So let's take it that way around, that'd be better. So like that. I'm going to put my die on top. Yeah. And I'm also going to use a piece of black card. So that's because this is a thick paper and I don't want, actually I'm going to cut this the same width because that'll make life easier. It's a thick paper, it's not quite card, and so I like to have a bit more substance, and it helps make sure the foil goes into the die properly so that you get proper foiling. So I'm going to tape my die down on top of my foil, and I'm going to tape my pattern paper on top of my black card. Like that. It doesn't need to overlap by a lot, just enough to keep it in place while I'm putting it on the GoPress and foil. There, okay, so I can turn that upside down without my die falling off. So then on my GoPress, as I say, I've already got 1 metal plate. So this has been getting hot. So I'm going to add this one, and the die goes that way up so that the die is against the metal plate and the cutting side of the die is facing up. I'm then going to add my other metal shim, and then I've been experimenting with this and I've found that 4 thicknesses of card, it's 250 GSM card I'm using, same as I use for making toppers, 4 thicknesses of that. So I've got 2 A4 sheets folded in half on there, and that gives me the right amount of pressure for my foiling and die cutting in there, and that goes back on the base unit to warm up. Okay, so I usually wait. Now at the moment my GoPress and For the Light is green. It's just gone to red, so I'm going to wait until that's heated again, and then I'll run it through my die cutting machine. Okay, so I always wait for it to go back to red and do its heating and come back to green before I actually roll it through. And there we are, it's just got there. It's only a small die, so it shouldn't have taken too long to heat it. Okay, so there we are. So let me roll that through. Now my die cutting machine feels quite stiff when I'm doing this because I am die cutting rather than just foiling. you're in focus. So there's my shims. I'm just going to, I've got my pick and lift here. Buried it in my toolbox. So I can use my pick and lift or my use them as tweezers and pick this up. But I actually find it easier, since I've got one, to use a spare silicone mat. I can just pick it up in that. Move it to one side. I'm going to leave the other one on there in case I want to foil something else. Okay, so that's how the back looks. So you can see where the pressures made patterns in the card, and it's just about die cut. I'm not sure it's die cut everywhere, okay? But let's see how we've got on. And let me refocus the camera. I'm going to zoom it a little bit as well. There, okay. So let's take the tape off of here. Take the die off. So that's nearly die cut. I might run that through the die cutting machine before I use it. Now, if you have trouble peeling the foil at the edge of these, just get your tape. Make sure that's on the camera. Just stick it at the edge and just use the foil, the tape to pick the foil up. So let's bring that up to there. So I have got some overfoiling on this, and to be honest, I expected to get some overfoiling on this. I don't know whether it's this particular die or the foil and the combination, but it seems I do tend to get overfoiling on this. But I find the Couture Creations papers, the foil comes off those quite easily without actually taking away the print colour that's on there. So let's clean that up. But before I clean it up, I'm going to stick it down on the black card I've used. Okay, so my black card, did it die cut? I don't think it didn't quite die cut. So I'm just going to run that through my die cutting machine on its own. I'm just going to pop it back on there. Bit of tape to hold it in place. So if you don't have a foiling machine, you can still use these dies. If you're working obviously with white card, you can ink the die and before you die cut it, and then it will leave the impression where the ink is. Or you can just die cut them like I have here. Let me zoom in on that. You can see I've got a really deep emboss. I could put some gilding wax on that. And obviously the raised bits would take the gilding wax, and the recessed bits where the dies press the card in would not. So I could end up with sort of a metallic sign with like etched black letters on it. So there's my thinking of you. So before I clean up my overfoiling on that, I'm going to stick the two together. I'm going to use wet glue, and I like to, I've got some glue, I've just decanted it into a fine tip nozzle bottle. So whatever normal paper crafting glue you use, that will be fine. And if you're worried about it all splurting out, making a mess when you stick the two together, here's my top tip. I have, if I can find it, I have a piece of scrap acetate. You can see what state it's in. Okay, I clean it off occasionally, put it in the sink, give it a scrub. But if I'm doing something like this, and particularly if I think I've put a big blob of glue somewhere, like this, put some more glue on, I just blot it off on this. So I just turn it over, just press it gently, and then excess glue will be sort of spread out and left on the acetate. It means that I don't get it on my craft mat when I stick things together. So because these were die cut together, they really do want to actually just slot back into place. So they stick together really easily. And this means when I put it up on my foam pads, I don't need foam absolutely everywhere, because it's not going to flop about or get bent easily. Okay, so I'll stack that together. Put that there, give it a press. Okay, so now this is not going to bend easily when I start trying to remove the overfoiling. Let's get this out of the way. So I've got foil that's sort of on areas that are facing up, then I find a flat sand eraser is the easiest thing. Now I'm going to zoom in on this and I'm going to make sure my camera is focused. No, there we are, put it there. Okay, and zoom a bit more. There. So just use it flat and just take it over the edges. Don't try and go round the edges, just keep it flat on the top, because the foiling you want has been pressed into the paper or card and is not going to come into contact with the eraser. So a sand eraser, sort of thing you might use for erasing ink or coloured pencil. I'm just going around this, hopefully you can see what I'm doing. So I've gone around that and that's removed, oops, focusing on that, so that's removed a lot of the overfoiling that was there. I've still got some sort of on the edges, you can see it glinting in the sun there. Okay, so now I get out my Couture Creations Creative Detailer, okay, because that's great for getting around the edges. So let me just, I'm here. So you press the button and it spins the rubber in the end. It's battery operated. You don't want to spend too much time watching me do that. So as you can see, that's now taken, needs a little bit more, but it's taken most of that overfoiling off that top edge. So I get that nice contrast between the foil and the pattern paper. Okay, so that's how I work with those. So let me just bring the card back. I'm just going to take the camera zoom back. Oh, and bring the card back. Let's put the camera up a little bit. So there we are. So that's how I created my sentiment, and that's my finished card. So that's the Steampunk Dreams papers and tag set. The key is part of that set, and the Thinking of You, part of the Dazzlier sentiments, is in that collection. And the Happy Birthday is that one, the long thin one, is in a batch called the Exquisite Sentiments. And there's a whole set of those that come together. There's I think Happy Birthday, Get Well, Miss You, Love You. Can't remember what the other one is, but a great set to have. Okay, so there's my card. Thank you for watching.